Welcome, Steve. Great to be back in the Edinburgh Innovation Student Hub. Been brilliant host as always, so thanks Jack and the team for putting up with us, and great to see you guys in person, and obviously you guys virtual during Gather Town, very 2022 of us. One thing I should add actually to Nick's intro is Slido. So we're doing a Slido Q&A throughout the evening. So if you want to find the code for it, just go onto our Twitter. That'll be one of the recent tweets. We'll keep retweeting it, so it's top of the timeline. So if you want to ask Steve a burning question, which I'm sure you will throughout the talk, then that's your opportunity. And Anna's going to be emceeing the Q&A later on. So let's get started then. So Steve, welcome. Great to have you. I'm very excited, as hope he's come across for the interview tonight, and hope you receive my many notes. Lots to cover. But I was wondering, just to kick things off, could you give us an introduction? So who are you? Who is Steve?
Sure. Well, firstly, it's lovely to see everyone. Isn't it good to be back out meeting people and networking, and also I'm sure joining virtually, but it's just something special about meeting people and networking, as I was chatting to a few people earlier. A bit about me, I guess. I've been running high growth tech businesses for the last 10 years or so, a property tech business, then a FinTech one called Money Dashboard, and I've just launched a new business called loveelectric, which is in the kind of EV space. Prior to that, I was lucky enough to go on the Saltire Fellowship. You may have heard of that. It was just the most phenomenal opportunity to head out to America. At the time, it was close to a year-long program, fully paid scholarship. It's just like nuts. Fully paid scholarship to go out and study and learn and work a bit and really be equipped for the journey that I've had. So that's a bit about me. I'm married, 2 kids. My eldest daughter said to me as I came out, I should don't embarrass yourself or the family, please. So with that ringing in my ears, I'll try and go home and give her a good report.
No risk of that, I'm sure, Steve. Quite the opposite. Fantastic. Well, obviously, given us a bit of context about previous career, so lots to dive into, as I'm sure you guys can appreciate from Steve's introduction. I was wondering if we could start actually even earlier from what you mentioned. So I was doing a bit of LinkedIn stalking, which normally is weird, but okay in this circumstance. And I was seeing that your early career has actually been an account director in branding, if that sounds right. I'd love to hear a bit about that, because that's quite a big jump, I guess you could say, between obviously being kind of more account director focused into startups. Can you tell us a bit about how that happened?
Massive change. So when you work in an agency, and I don't know if anyone does work in an agency here, but you kind of think about the world as, are you in the agency world, or are you client side? It's like, that's it. There's only 2 worlds. You're either in the agency or you're the client side. And of course, client side meant you did a marketing job at one of the clients. I think that world is very, very different now to what it was in 2004 when I started my career in advertising. So it was an ad agency. It was the era, believe it or not, where pretty much all the spend was on television, on broadcast media generally, radio, outdoor, and it was great fun. Clients had a lot of money to spend. They would entertain well. We would entertain them well. It was just a really vibrant kind of place to be. We would have, one day you'd be sketching ideas with the creatives, then you'd be out doing customer insight stuff, kind of getting insight on the brand and how they thought about the product category that you're in. Then you'd be pitching those ideas to clients. Then you'd be on a film shoot or like an ad shoot, the next day. Then you'd see your work live in a couple of weeks, and then you'd be analyzing the data. So it was a really, really vibrant, really cool environment. I think what I learned from that, though, was it was great, but there was this massive digital disruption that was happening before our eyes, and as an agency, we did nothing about it. So the owners of that business were fantastic advertising professionals, genuinely some of the best, and I learned so much from them. But it was kind of a lifestyle business, so the agency was very well known and very well respected for the work it did. It always won tons of awards and treated the staff really well, and it was a really, really healthy culture. But it was basically a lifestyle business for the owners. And so when they saw the advent, as Google emerged as one of the first platforms that started taking ad spend away, it was like, what's that pay-per-click thing? And SEO, that sounds a bit strange. Like, surely it won't ever really amount to anything. And so we just kind of left it. And slowly but surely, our client budgets just kept shrinking to the point where we were producing television commercials that really you were quite embarrassed about, because the budgets just got so small. So there's a lot of stickman animation instead of actual live shoots. So I could see firsthand that, that impact of an industry being disrupted. And I remember thinking, I always wanted to start my own business. I always had a couple of things on the side, but I wanted to start and launch a proper business. And I thought I want to be on the right side of that digital disruption. And I figured that advertising was just one industry, and lots of other industries were going to be similarly disrupted. So that was, I guess, the genesis for thinking through. Even though I knew nothing about tech, I'd experienced the negative impact of tech. I thought I want to benefit from it rather than be the victim.
Fantastic, and the disruption piece is obviously something that's probably going to thread, I guess, throughout the talk today and your career by the sounds of it. So tell us a bit more about Babson College then, because that's something that I know you speak about a lot and you're very positive about, and certainly quite eye-opening. Yeah, tell us how it kind of came about and any particular memorable highlights.
Yeah, so it's kind of at the point where, I think we all get to certain points in our careers, don't we, where we feel a bit unsettled, or we feel like there's got to be more, or I want to do something a bit more challenging. And I think I was at that particular point, and I wasn't really sure what to do. I didn't really feel like I had the skills at that point to just start something. I had lots of ideas, but I didn't really know exactly how to go about doing anything, about making it happen. And I remember literally just one evening searching, and I saw an advert for this Saltire Fellowship thing. And it just looked like one of these scams, It was like a fully paid scholarship in America. We'll do this. You'll get an apartment. You'll get a stipend. Your world's best entrepreneurial college. I was like, yeah, okay. And then anyway, I still clicked through, expecting my computer to blow up or something. Yeah. And then it looked legit, and I saw it was sort of basically paid for by Scottish Enterprise at the time. I thought, okay, well, this is amazing. I've got to apply. I was married at the time, fairly newly married, and I kind of very quickly realized, and you have that slight kind of sinking feeling where you're like, oh, from a career perspective, that looks amazing, but from a personal perspective, potentially being apart for 6 months, 9 months, or a year even, was just like, oh God, how do we even think about that? My wife's very gracious, and she looks and she said, I saw the opportunity to get rid of me for 9 months probably. But she said, no, this looks like too good an opportunity not to at least try. And so I applied. Luckily, I was very, very grateful to get the opportunity to go on the course. And then, it was a really eye-opening experience, because I don't know if anyone's ever heard about the Saltire Fellowship. I see a few nodding heads, so I won't go into too much detail. But the idea of going into a completely different culture, completely different environment, where you've got teachers that were former entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, really gifted at teaching, would challenge you, make you feel exceptionally uncomfortable, and just the intensity of the whole program was really, really life-changing. And also just being in a different, actually coming out of the bubble that you're in, and seeing something different, and seeing a different way of doing business, a different way of, I don't know, just, we all came back as a group, I think, and we'd be in these networking events, kind of like this, or actually more like kind of the par equity scene, or, the kind of like, I don't know, just the Edinburgh scene, and everyone would be like bouncing off the walls with enthusiasm, like we'd definitely caught the American bug. And all these sort of, I don't know, angel investors like, guys, we like the enthusiasm, but like tone it down a bit. But we were just sort of like so full of like energy. We just wanted to get after stuff. And so it was definitely eye-opening in the sense that you cannot be in that kind of environment, in that intense environment, and then not let it change you. It'd be really, really strange.
Exactly, and we were talking about similar with our trip to Silicon Valley. Yeah, it's happening next Saturday onwards, and it's a really great part of it, isn't it? Because I think when you're in an ecosystem, like you're saying, it's a bubble, isn't it? So that new perspective is a game changer. So why don't we fast forward a bit, actually? So I know we've got a lot to cover in terms of different experiences from yourself. Am I right to say it was letting web that was next?
Correct.
How did that come about?
So I was determined when I was in America to start something when I came back to Edinburgh. I think I mentioned my wife earlier, and in a unplanned situation, after about a week of being in America, I got a phone call from a very distressed wife. I said, oh, what's happened? You lost your job or fallen out with some family member? I'm pregnant. I thought, oh, wow, that'll be fine. And my roommate was a guy called Mark Simmers, who's the CEO of Celtic Renewables. And I sort of didn't know him that well. He didn't know me that we would only known each other for a week or so. And I think I went to the fridge that night, got my first beer, and just sat down, downed it in about 3 seconds. Got my second, got my third, got my fourth. I think he thought, this guy might have a problem. And then I opened up and just said, geez, what am I going to do? And it was great because he had 3 kids and was able to say, oh, we'll be fine. So anyway, my wife ended up joining after she did give up her job. She came out to America after 3 months, so we weren't apart for too long, which was great. But anyway, so I came back, homeless, jobless, basically penniless, and the kid on the way. And so we thought, well, starting a business now, and I'm a reasonable risk taker, but that's probably taking it too far. So I was looking for a job, and I wanted to lead a business, and I got introduced to the guy that ran or owned a business called Letting Web. It was like 5-6 people. It was a rental property portal. It was the biggest in Scotland. They were trying to kind of expand into England, and it looked like a really great opportunity. So it was sort of pitched to me as, come in, we're just about to bring the tech in-house. We've been using this agency for a long time. We've got the developers, we're about to push the button. It's all about commercializing now because the tech's there. And I was like, this sounds like a brilliant opportunity. And got in, and it was just mad. It was chaos. There was 6 people that just had absolutely no gut. I mean, all sorts. I can't say publicly what was going on there. It was a mess. And then it turned out that the website or the in-house team was resigned actually on the day before I came in. And they took their code with them. So we had to basically start again. I was like, I wasn't really expecting a kind of turnaround type situation on my first job. But anyway, it was great fun. Learned a lot. I think like I said, I knew nothing about tech. So I remember thinking, I need to now get a developer. I thought I probably just need one person, developer. And I had no idea about front end, back end, no, literally nothing. I mean, and so I hired a guy from Estonia who was basically UX front end developer and did the UI design as well. So he was absolutely phenomenal. And it was only after about a year he said, I'm doing 3 jobs for this company. I was like, no, but thanks for telling me. And he came in and I said, right, what do we need to do to build this? And we just kind of made it up as we went along, realized we needed a back-end developer, rebuilt the app, and went from there. So that was the first kind of baptism of fire. And it was, again, a very, very intense experience, but I learned, tons and tons from that.
I'd say baptism of fire for you, and understatement, given what you said. So tell me a bit more about the transitional change from Letting Web to Money Dashboard.
Yeah.
So again, I guess that's kind of 2 completely different industries.
Yeah.
How did that come about? What was the story behind that?
So I think the catalyst for me was, again, it was, you have, like I say, you have these different moments in your career. I think for me, we managed to build Letting Web into, sort of repositioned it as more of a letting services business for letting agents. And the reason for that was Zoopla and Rightmove were encroaching on our territory. We were outperforming Zoopla 10 inquiries to 1 when they first came into the market, but we were spending $2,500 a month on marketing, and they started spending about $100,000 a month in Scotland. And we're like, oh, okay, we're seeing that balance switch. So we did a strategic partnership with them. So we resold so we had an exclusive right to resell all of the Zoopla listings, which really, really helped grow our revenue, solidified our position in the market, and then we diversified our product range. Anyway, the reason I say all that was one of our product ranges was to kind of like do letting statistics of all things. And it sounds like the most boring thing you could ever imagine. But if you're a letting agent and you're desperately trying to get an edge over your competition, you want to be able to go and pitch to the landlords and say, do you know the average time to let is 30 days, we do 24 days. So we did that. We basically used the data that we had to produce really useful products to help our customers succeed. And off the back of that, we thought, there's probably some PR here. So we did a press release, and it was like rental stock crisis. And all of a sudden, the PR release worked. And BBC 6 p.m. News, whatever, said, we want you on the TV tonight. I was like, oh, right. So they came around, and then we were like really quickly trying to get the banners up. So they came in to fill, and I had like the Letting Web logo on. And I was on the TV, and I was talking about rental stock in Scotland, and I thought, what has my life come to? Why am I this guy on TV talking about rental properties in Scotland? And I thought, I need to change. So I came away from that, even though it was like quite a good thing for the business, just thinking, oh my goodness, I need to get out now. And so I was looking for a venture-backed business. There weren't that many in Scotland at the time. Money Dashboard was one of them, and so I met up with the founder, just said I really like the product. So I was a user of Money Dashboard and could see the potential and said I'd love to join your team, and he offered me a job, and so we've moved on there.
Fantastic. And how was the start at Money Dashboard? Hopefully it was more organised.
Yeah.
It
was great, and I think because it was venture backed, there was a really strong leadership team. There was a large development team. Things were there were proper processes. I was like, oh my goodness, I should have been doing all of this at Langweb. So I sort of came into that environment. But it was really nice actually as well to kind of take the pressure off, because everyone says it's quite a lonely place when you're running a business, and it really is. And particularly when things are so challenging and you feel like you're just coming up against challenge after challenge. So it's quite nice to go into the exec team, not have that pressure, but then just be part of a team for a bit. So I really enjoyed that spell, but it didn't stay peaceful for too long.
Okay. Well, we'll come on to that, because one thing that's popped up for me is obviously you have that chat with the founder. How was the dynamic? Was he still involved in the exec team? Was he kind of more stand out from the company? How did that work?
Yeah, so Gavin Littlejohn is just a brilliant guy. He's a fantastic entrepreneur. He's built a number of businesses that he founded, grew to a certain scale, and they've all gone on to do pretty well. He is a very unique character, I would say, in the sense that he's got really big ideas. He understands industries really well. He takes the time to like financial services. I mean, there's not anything he doesn't know about financial services. It's quite impressive. So he's quite a big visionary thinker, but he's also exceptionally detailed, like to the point where it's actually a hindrance. And I think he would admit that himself. So he would be very hands-on. He would make all the decisions and sign off on product. And it was a very kind of like traditional approach where the team would come with here's the menu of things we could build, and then be like the guy at the end of the board table, that one, So he was definitely very hands-on, and great guy to work with.
Fantastic. So let's go back to the peaceful start and then chaos later. What happened? How did that change?
So I think I didn't have exposure to the board, and there was Gavin and his Craig, the CFO, that would be at the board meetings, and so obviously that's all behind closed doors. And I don't know if, again, you might be in companies where you're like, oh, the mystical board meeting, what happens? It was kind of a bit like that for us, and we didn't really know what was happening. And I think what was really evident was we definitely did not have product market fit. The business had raised Series A too early, and as a result, the performance wasn't where it should have been. And so we were still trying to find product market fit whilst having the expectations that Series A funder would have, which is, you said the forecast was going to be boom, 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 boom. So at that point, we should have been scaling, and we really weren't. And Gavin is not one to hold back, and so he was like, no, he had a big vision for where he wanted to go. It's almost like, ignore that, we'll fix that, I'm going to do this product, and the investors are going, no, you're not, you need to fix this, you need to rein back. But Gavin was wanting to raise a 20 million round and take on the world. And this is when 20 million rounds were exceptionally rare. So you've got to admire the passion, the vision, the drive, but it was a real disconnect with the current investors, and so they basically fell out. Gavin moved on, and then the ship was rudderless, and it just sort of floated along and almost sank, basically. So we went for about 6 months without anyone in charge. It was sort of slightly chaotic. People started leaving because the founder leaving a business is very disruptive. And then we realized that the business had 6 weeks of cash left, and or I did, because I managed to get hold of the management accounts and I was like, and the cash flow. I was like, business is dead. It's absolutely dead. And business was meant to be bringing in an external CEO at that point, and I just sort of asked the board, I said, does the new CEO know that what the cash situation is? And evidently not. So I went away on a 2-week holiday, and I'd written up a plan just to say that the only way I think this business can survive is boom, 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 boom. Yeah. And I left to go on holiday, switched off my phone, didn't look at anything, and I thought, that's it, I'm coming back to no job. And I did come back to lots of voicemails that I hadn't listened to, and then it was like, you need to come to London on the Monday. So I flew down to London on Monday. I thought, it's a bit extreme to get my P45, but anyway. And then they asked me, the chairman said, would you take over as CEO and execute that plan? And I was like, okay. So we did that. The unfortunate consequence was the only way clearly of trying to stay alive was to basically do mass redundancies. So we went down to a skeleton squad and started again. Rebuilt the products, refocused on data monetization and new revenue streams, and thankfully rebuilt. But it was a very painful start.
Imagine, yeah. So starting to bring up, I guess, but it's really fascinating because what strikes me is, well, I didn't know any of that, of course, with Money Dashboard's history. How many other startups have been through that? You know, you always hear about the Series A's and the hiring and the success, but it's so, you know, humanized until you speak about it. So appreciate you giving all the context. And you guys probably saw in the marketing, we were shouting about all the, you know, the wins in top 250 in the world, FinTech and stuff. So it's, yeah, let's chat a bit more about that then, because obviously you've gone from that incredibly kind of, you know, I guess low point for the business.
Yep.
How did that recovery pan out then? What?
Yeah, so we got quite lucky. So we focused in and we said, okay, we you know, there's something quite galvanizing about that. Even though it's a traumatic event for an organization, it's also provides real clarity to say, okay, we went through something really, really bad. This is what we need to do now. And it was very clear that we didn't even have a native mobile app. So it was like, project number one, we need to do this. We need to really understand what the customers need. We need to build a great product. Number two was we need to find a way of generating revenues. And we had the genesis of a data monetization business that looked really, really promising. So we thought we're doubling down on that. And we just stuck to those two things. Like, let's get a better product. And we didn't even concern ourselves about growing the user base. It was like, we just need to get a better product and we need to use what we've got, the data we've already got, to generate more revenue. And both of those things worked really well. And so we built a product that ended up genuinely being, I think, the best in the market. And I guess the accolades and the awards and all that, I think, bore that out. And the data monetization business grew rapidly. And so off the back of that, the other investors, because we still only had 6 weeks, you know, it wasn't, you know, we didn't have very long. But what we were able to do was to get a few wins, get a few revenue contracts, which extended our runway. And then off the back of that, we did what I would describe as a friends and family round, but primarily existing investors and a couple of new angels. And so then we said, okay, great, this is where we're at. It was a down round, painful for everyone, but it wasn't a zero. And then we built up from there, and we grew from, again, maybe we went down to about 8 or 9 staff, and we got up to 45, and did grow the user base quite substantially, and continued to grow the revenues strongly, and got support from our community through crowdfunding as well, which is a really great source of capital for that kind of business model. Where you've got a big community that really likes the product, it kind of works really well. So yeah, so there were lots and lots of highlights, but you know, as you say, I think these stories are quite important in these contexts, because you only ever see the press releases and the wins, and no one's issuing a press release with this is what's really happened, unless there's some expose or something from some disgruntled staff member. But you know, that didn't happen too much. So it was like these are all the pains, these are all the challenges. But actually, you know, we came through that, and of course it wasn't plain sailing, but you know, the team achieved an awful lot, which was great.
Fantastic. It's been inspiring, honestly. And so we're going to come on to loveelectric very soon. I know that's, of course, your core venture, your own business as well. Speaking of kind of chaos and, you know, unexpected obstacles in the journey, I guess we kind of couldn't not cover the pandemic. So I'd say, Steve, you were at Money Dashboard until last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I left sort of early last year, and then stayed on as a non-exec until February, because we just exited actually about a month ago, which I don't think we've is in the public domain yet. But yeah, so we stayed up to that point, and then yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, it fits my question then. So I guess obviously you've spoken a lot about the challenges and when you came in. How did you manage the pandemic? Because of course that for everyone was just such a huge change overnight.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, I guess some businesses won and some businesses lost through that. I think everyone assumed that we would be a winner, but actually for the first 3 or 6 months, everyone was just like what the hell's happening? The last thing they were thinking about was sort of budgeting. You know, it was like actually everyone's expenses went way down. They had loads more disposable income and they were saving money, so they actually didn't need a budgeting app at all. So it didn't really help us massively, to be honest, from a kind of product perspective. From a team perspective, we'd just taken a very expensive lease on with lovely offices on George Street, and we just moved in, and it was amazing, and it was great having our own space. We'd moved out of Codebase into that environment. It really felt like a new chapter in the business, and then the pandemic happened. So that was a bit disappointing. But I mean, I think most people adjusted really well, didn't they? And I think there's all, I guess open plan working is all the rage. I think what everyone probably discovered is when you don't have those distractions and you can do deep work, it's actually highly productive. And of course, if you don't have the 2-hour commute or the 1-hour commute or whatever you've got, then you're saving a lot of time. And I also realized this morning, actually, on a team call, because we're a remote business, I don't know how it came up, but we sort of asked some of the younger members of staff. I honestly don't know how it came up. I don't ask this question. But they basically said, I just basically rolled out of bed. So it was like we had our meeting at 9:15 and discovered that everyone wakes up at 8:45. And I have 2 kids. I can't remember the last time I woke up at 8:45. So I now realize why everyone's so keen on remote working. I don't know why they didn't clock. It's taken me 2 years. Anyway, so I think there were lots of advantages for people. They enjoyed the space, the freedom. We did some other things, like we just over communicated initially, and we also did little things like I think everyone wanted to kind of help and do something, so we said just like everyone. I think I saw another company do it. I thought it was a great idea. Give everyone 50 quid to go and get groceries for a neighbor and stuff like that. So I think we tried to do small things that we could, and also make sure that everyone had the right office set up and all the basics. But it worked really well, surprisingly well, and I think collaboration improved, productivity improved, general staff satisfaction improved. So I think we had this really expensive lease in George Street that we can get out of. But yeah, anyway, it's one of those things.
Fantastic. And again, it's really great to hear kind of positive spin on what is obviously such a dramatic industry negative event.
Yeah.
So Steve, let's go on to your own business. I know we've had a bit of a kind of winding journey during the chat to get there. Yeah, I'd just love to hear a bit more about the genesis story behind it. So I know we were chatting a bit about sustainability and stuff, and you'll say that's something that you're keen to kind of learn more about and focus on, especially this year. But how did that happen?
Yeah, so I knew I was leaving Money Dashboard, and I'd always said that was my last apprenticeship, and I was going to do my own thing. And as I left, we'd actually almost sold the business to another company, and they'd offered me a job, which was slightly awkward. But it was a great job, and it was one that I really wanted to do. But I was like, no, I'm going to stick to my guns here. I didn't actually have a business plan. I had a bunch of ideas, and I thought, how do I turn this down? But I thought, if I don't do it now, when will I do it? And so I thought, I'm just going to do it. I will have more regrets not doing this than missing out on a good job. So I thought, I'm going to go for it. And my first idea was an energy switching, a green energy switching business, and I had a different idea around. I won't bore you with it, but it was like there was a degree of novelty on it. But I did a thorough jobs to be done project on it, so I just did it all myself. I learned that methodology, did it myself, bored people to tears doing the really it's a horrendous customer interview. I don't know if you've ever done jobs to be done interviews. Oh, it's hideous. So I did that. Did all the analysis, and of all the things, my idea was literally the worst of all of the different. It was the worst. So it was brilliant because I was able to go. I thought this was really good. I was in love with the idea. I knew I could get venture capital backing, but all the customers were saying this is crap. So I was like, okay, great. So I just killed it, even though I'd spent probably a solid 6 weeks working on it. I was like, got to kill it, and then I started thinking about some new stuff. And this was sort of serendipitous in that I was looking at trying to get an electric car. I was really surprised at how expensive they were, and I've got kids that my eldest is now 10, so she's kind of talking about this sort of stuff, and it's a big thing when you've got kids that start really thinking about it, and you start thinking about it, you're more conscious of your consumption, I guess. And so I started looking for it, and then I was like, oh, it'd be great to get a Tesla, wouldn't it? And I was on the brochure, and then I saw I was like, oh, it's expensive, it looks really good. And then I was like page 17, and it was saw it in the small print, it said salary sacrifice. And I was like, the only salary sacrifice thing I know is the bike to work scheme, and I really liked getting 400 quid off my bike. I wonder if I could get a half price Tesla. And so I did some research, did some digging, went into the HMRC rules, and I was like, this is actually a thing. And I was like, how does no one know about this? And I figured that basically what happened was the government reduced the tax to 0 on electric vehicles, benefit in kind tax, but they announced it as the pandemic broke. And so it'd been a thing for a year, but no one knew about it because no one was thinking about buying a car. and it just got lost in the noise. So I was like, there's no one doing this. This is a thing. So so I started researching it, and then I did some competitive research. I did find someone that was mentioning it was Octopus EV, but they were doing business contract hire, a personal contract hire. That was their focus. They had a little tab saying salary sacrifice. I was like, okay, but I was like, this is going to be an absolutely massive market. It's a bit like, in the money dashboard setting, we saw the challenger banks come, and Monzo and Starling and Revolut. There's always space for 3 or 4 or 5 really big players, and I was like, no one's specializing in this. I'm gonna try and do this. So I knew nothing about the car industry. I knew nothing really about the sort of machinations of tax and this, how this would all work. But I just thought it's too strong an idea. I did a smoke test. I built a landing page and did a test, and I had my hypothesis and did all the good stuff that you're meant to do, and it came back as a resounding success. So quite the opposite to my previous test. And I thought, I'm just going to do this. So yeah, I launched it.
Fantastic. And what's really great, Steve, I can see from our chat here is, there's a lot of narrative around people starting a business young, and you've got, Mark Zuckerberg and like people in their 20s being billionaires and stuff. I think what you've shown is like, it's quite a fallacy, really, to be honest. I think you've shown you've got, Babson College. That's, I guess, kind of more academic. You've got so many businesses that you've led. What's your take on it? I guess I know obviously you have your own experience, but would you agree that sometimes it's better to wait and, like you said, get apprenticeships with companies?
So I think there's some really good research on it from the Kaufman Foundation. You remember that from Babson? So they talked about, there's I guess an institution that looks at this and tracks all the data and looks at the various demographics of founders, and I think the average age of the most successful founders is, I think it's 39 or 40, something like that. So it's a little bit older than maybe, I guess, like you're saying, that the media normally portrays. It's not to say obviously there aren't amazing successes, and it's not to say that you should wait until you're 38 or whatever, 39 until you start a business. But I think the point is that there's a lot of people, probably because they've had a bit more experience, or they've made connections, or they've got a network, or you do have to convince an awful lot of people along the way. And so if you don't have an absolutely outstanding idea or some really unfair advantage, then when you're younger, it's probably going to take a lot longer, and it's going to be a lot harder. If you've got a network, or investors, or you know your way around a few things, then naturally people are going to go, okay, well, if I like this person, they've got some experiences, they've got some, there's probably a better chance of success. And I guess the data would bear that out. So I think there is definitely advantages, but I also think, if someone really has a strong idea and has a team around them, or believes they can get a team around them, I think should absolutely do it. So yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Brilliant summary. So yeah, let's go a bit more to present day then, Stephen. Tell me through a bit about where you are now, loveelectric, and the plan, like what you can envision for this year and beyond.
Yeah, so I mean, we thankfully are growing like so fast. So with Money Dashboard, we always kind of had pretty decent steady growth, like 30 to 50% year-on-year growth, which for me felt fast. But we're doing like, I think we're growing about 80% month on month. So we're just going crazy. We're signing up tons of businesses, because our model is the cycle to work scheme for EVs. So we go into businesses and we say to them, we know you're struggling to retain your best staff. We know you're struggling to start your journey to net zero. Why not use our free platform to give your employees access to half price Teslas and all electric vehicles? So we have built a web app where the employees can go in and they can search for any car they can order online in a couple of minutes, all electronic, and then the car gets delivered to their door when it's ready, and it includes everything: insurance, maintenance, breakdown cover, everything. So it's a really, really neat consumer proposition, but it's also a really great kind of business proposition, because there's no cost, and it ticks a lot of boxes. So yeah, so I think off the back of that, it's landed at the right time. It's also landed at a time where people are moving back into offices, and sales teams are getting back out on the road, and so they're even thinking about their fleet, if they've got a fleet, and electrifying that fleet. And so yeah, we seem to fit at the right time. And so we're now just kind of super focused on execution, on being the best product in the market, delivering the best service. we decided to be a B Corp. So we were, I don't know if people are familiar with that, but we have a legal responsibility to our people and to the planet, as well as profit and return for shareholders. And so that kind of guides, I guess, a lot of the decisions that we make. So we're just, honestly, like, we've got our financial targets. We kind of want to be one of the fastest growing businesses in the UK for sure. And I think we're on track to do that. But more important is just, like, literally everyone that touches the business having a great experience. So the customers, the staff, the investors, that's kind of the heartbeat of the organization.
Fantastic. Well, it's all right to hear things going so well and fast growth. And I know we spoke a bit about that before, so that's brilliant. So one more question for me, Steve. Obviously, thanks for your time. It's been brilliant to hear your story. And I think what strikes me about your answers is within every story you've given, there's been so many lessons I've definitely picked up. I'm sure the audience have as well. So yeah, one more question. We'll pass over to Anna for Q&A. I think there'll be some pretty juicy questions in that as well. But a bit of a quick fire to finish, actually. And I know today's been a lot about your journey, from being a account executive to today. So I guess with that in mind, I'd love to ask you, there's one, even two things that if you could go back, you'd tell 25-year-old Steve in terms of lessons or advice?
So yeah, I think when I was kind of coming out of uni and starting my career, kind of around that phase, I think I was like so competitive in like probably an unhealthy way. And I remember kind of at the end of uni just wanting to finish top of the class. Like that was a big thing for me. And I didn't realize, like, it becomes a really unhealthy obsession, that because you're trying to win at other people's expense, really. And I think what I realized, or what I have realized and what I've learned, is if you don't bother with any of that and you run your own race and you don't worry about racing against others, it's really transformative in the way that you think. And that's like, if I'd said, I want to be the best I can be, I want to get the best academic results I can get, and actually I don't really care where I come. If I've done that, then that's great. And in the same vein, it's like here, it's like you can easily, like in this market with Love Electric and Octopus, and there's one or two others that have come into the market. It's like if we obsess on being number one, that's the wrong thing to obsess on. Like if we do the right things and we run our race, we're clear on what we want to build, then we may well become number one. That might be a byproduct of it, and that's great. But also, I think if you liberate yourself from that, or if I had liberated myself from that thinking, I'd have been much happier cheering other people on. And that's just a great place to be, because I've also learned that if you compare yourself to others constantly, you just get disappointed because there's always someone better than you at whatever you're or in some area of your life. So that would be my advice to my 20-year-old self.
Well, it's a very point. I think there's a quote. I might be making this up. Maybe Einstein. That might be complete nonsense. But he said, it's comparison is the thief of joy, or something like that.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's much better. I would have been quicker.
No, I was going to say, well, no, I mean, you've said it even better, much more nuanced. But well, Steve, thanks so much for a chat with me. I'll pass over to Anna just now, and we'll do some Q&A and
cool. Sounds good.
Get straight into that. But should we do a round of applause now? Yeah, why not? We'll do one at the end as well. But,
Hi, Steve.
Hello.
Cool. So, yeah, thank you so much for such a great
pleasure.
chat, and I love the message that you left it on. You're running your own way, your own race, and only person you can beat is yourself, right? So we have a few questions here on Slido from the audience. Yes. Okay. Yeah, live audience and at home as well. Yeah. But if anybody would like to ask a question as well, just put your hand up. But I'll start off from something from Slido. So firstly, we have, how was the shift from running a company that wasn't yours to being able to create something from scratch? How did you find that transition?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's something I grappled with a lot before starting. I think I wondered honestly if I was going to be cut out to start something from scratch, because I'd always inherited things and I'd had teams and I'd had some resources, and I thought, oh man, like the idea of actually starting something completely from scratch, that's quite daunting. Even though I really wanted to do it, I had doubts, I guess. And I spoke to a couple of mentors or people that I knew and respected and had been serial entrepreneurs. And I said, like, what do you think the job's different? Like, how different is it? Like, it's exactly the same. And now that I'm like 7 or 8 months in, is like, I am doing exactly the same job that I was doing at Money Dashboard and at Letting Web. And so the slight difference was doing everything myself, obviously, for the first 3-4 months, which was also quite good fun, getting back into the just building and pitching and selling and pretending I can code, which I really, really can't, and stuff like that. So I think it was just trying to do kind of everything was quite a fun project, and I really, really enjoyed it. But then I got to the point where I was like, I'm now ready to build a team and let go of things. And so yeah, no, but I do think that kind of taking the leap is always a big challenge, and of course the stakes are quite high, aren't they? Because if you've got a steady paycheck and you've got a mortgage to pay and you've got kids to feed, it's quite a daunting task or thing to do. But yeah, like I said, I figured that if it didn't work out and I ran out of money after, personally ran out of money after 6 months, which is kind of what my trajectory was, I figured that I'd get a job. So I thought that genuinely the way I thought about it was, if I look back in 5 years, how will I feel about not doing this? And I thought I will kick myself. I probably won't forgive myself for not doing this. So I thought, even if I do it and I fail, I've still succeeded, because coming back to the running your own race, it's like, that's what I wanted to do. So.
Absolutely. And I guess having complete ownership as well over your idea.
Yeah, and keeping things clean, like having a clean start. And of course, there will be many bumps along the way, I'm sure, but not having a messy cap table and handpicking investors to come in and deciding what tech stack to build in, and that's really, really refreshing. So yeah, that's been great.
Absolutely. Off the back of that, and I think you kind of answered this maybe a little bit, but just digging into this a little bit more, I think it's a really interesting question. Do you think that your leadership style has changed at all between Money Dashboard and Love Electric?
No, not really. I think my leadership style changed a lot through Money Dashboard. So I was very different at the beginning than I was at the end of 5 years. I think at the beginning I was hugely apologetic. I was quite weak as a leader, honestly. So I think because it had started with letting everyone go, I felt, even though I don't really think it was my fault, I inherited that position, and that was the only way of moving things forward. I still felt a huge sense of guilt, still looked people in the eye and let them go. It's brutal, you just don't want to do that. So I think that stayed with me for longer than I probably had realized it would, and I was therefore defensive and apologetic, and wasn't able to have hard conversations. I think I guess I probably matured a lot through that process, and I think at the end of the process I was quite happy that it was the right balance of really wanting the best for people, but not being afraid to challenge and have hard conversations and coach people. Because what I realized is, if you don't do that, and then they're not performing, and then they get into this really horrible situation where they're not performing, it's not the right environment for them, but it comes as a shock to them. That's the worst form of leadership. It should never, ever, ever be a surprise to someone if they're not a great fit for the organization. That it should be very, very obvious, and they should have had every opportunity to improve. So yeah. So I think that now I hope it's if nothing else, it's consistent, which is quite important in leadership. So.
No, absolutely. And I think, off the back of that, I think this is a really interesting question, maybe around leadership as well. So coming from a more traditional entrepreneurial background, what was the motivation to becoming a B Corp?
So yeah, I think my wife took a bit of persuasion to help me out on in getting this thing up and running, and she's brilliant, because she's got all the skills that I don't have. She's great with people. She's very kind-hearted, and she had a big influence on, okay, when we build this business, what do we want it to look like? And so we tried to visualize what that would be, and it was really clear. It always came back to actually really genuinely making it. And you can sound like such a tool saying this, but trying to be whiter than white and more. It's not. It's just like, what will we be really personally happy with? And so we kind of thought about that, and we thought it would be good, rather than just saying it, to put a wrapper around it. And then we, was aware of the B Corp movement, and thought that would be a great thing to sort of nail our colours to the mast. And one of the things that we did, because I believe this will be a highly profitable business. We're already a profitable month 7, which is great. And I think that we made a commitment to give 10% of our profits straight from the get-go, because it's so easy to say that you're going to do that, and then when the money comes in, If you haven't made that commitment, it's like, oh, that's a lot of money to give away. But so if you make that commitment really early on, and I also learned that personally, but my faith is quite important to me, so I've always sort of given to sort of faith-based organizations. And so I also realized, like, it's one thing saying, oh, I'll be a philanthropist when I've made it. But actually, if you need to start early and do it when you've not really got anything and it really hurts, I found anyway. So in the context of the B Corp thing, it was like, this is a great wrapper to keep us accountable, to keep our investors accountable, because they have to buy into that as well, and they can't force us to go down a different path because we've got a legal responsibility in our articles. So.
Before I jump into another question, does anybody in the audience here have anything that they'd like to ask? Please. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. A couple of questions, actually. First is, who the hell paid for the second half of the Tesla?
That's a great question. So the way it works, I don't know if you know how the cycle to work scheme works, but if you buy a bicycle for £1,000, you basically pay for that out of your salary. So you do a salary sacrifice, and because you're therefore taking that off your salary, it basically means you're not paying income tax or national insurance on that portion that you've sacrificed. So if you're a higher rate taxpayer and you're paying 40% tax, and we also have a VAT saving as well, you're going to save about 50+% actually, because of the reduced tax on the salary that you sacrificed. If that makes sense. So you give up a bit of your salary, and therefore your net pay goes down, but your net pay doesn't go down as much as the gross cost for the vehicle. And it's to be clear, it's not like we're not selling £50,000 Teslas at 25,000. It's a leasing model, so they lease it. So it's like a monthly rental kind of thing, and so that monthly rental is halved.
Right, gotcha. Okay, and one of the questions that I was really curious about is, do you think that your journey personally started from this Saltire Foundation, or it was just like one of the stepping stones that kind of like kicked you to take this path? Or because for a lot of entrepreneurs, I believe they say, oh, they're successful because they found this like good partner. Oh, they're successful because they got this like good business angel. Oh, they're successful because they got to go to like San Francisco. But do you think that's really important, or do you think it's more like up to you to decide what you want to do and doing that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think that program was a huge catalyst, but it's not the only thing. So I was, like one of those annoying kids that was always selling the stuff at school, and I got a paper round and outsourced it to my younger brother, and poor lad. Which was brought up on my wedding day, which is slightly mortifying. So I think I'd probably always done a bit of that. I think when I said I had a couple of things on the site, this is quite embarrassing to admit, but should I do it? I sold maxi dresses on eBay. And I think I've still got some extra large maxi dresses somewhere in a cupboard, some of that I didn't sell. So I was like always trying to do stuff. Like I remember I met a friend for a couple of pints once, and he showed me a mural he'd done for a friend's kid's bedroom, and it was amazing. I was like, let's create a business. That's brilliant. And so we created a business, and he started doing loads. He was doing all the work, but he was doing kind of all the murals in the schools and all that, and I was the business guy. So I was like, okay, so I think I was probably always quite driven to see ideas. They were all obviously very, very small scale, but I had that kind of probably innate motivation. And then the Saltire Foundation obviously put me in a different kind of network and exposed me to different business models and different ways of thinking about things on a completely different level. So I think that was the advantage. So I think it's something innate. I think people kind of generally kind of really have a passion to do it, because if you don't have a passion to do a startup, it's the craziest thing in the world to do. You need to be driven to want to create something, to do something, to take the risk, because it's financially it's a really stupid decision. You're much better off doing a proper career and working your way up if you're a capable operator. So you have to be, it's insane to do a startup. So I think, so I think it's from within, but then it's about making those opportunities and also constantly learning and being humble enough to go, I definitely don't, and I'm still learning all the time, all really, really hungry to read and to learn and to meet people that have done much better than me and figure out from them what have they done that I could learn.
That would be a good lead up from that. Why did they let you run the first property business? Did it require the sort of that experience to being allowed to do that? 'Cause that
Yeah,
seems like
I mean,
quite a...
it was a crazy leap, and I think the business owner of that business was basically a property developer. So he was very busy doing his property development, which made him more money than this project. The genesis of that particular business was that he was a letting agent. That was he's a great entrepreneur, and that was his business. He realized that the internet was disrupting every market. It was disrupting. It was like when he was a letting agent, you advertised all your properties in the Scotsman, and people went and got the paper, and so he was like, he spotted the opportunity of going online. But he was looking for it was just good timing, because he was looking for a manager or a managing director to come in and basically run it. And so it was just good timing, and also he was operating on a fairly tight budget, and I think I was quite a good value, so a bit of that.
Brilliant. Just have time for one more question, and I'm going to take this one. What makes you excited about the future of tech?
Oh. So I think, like in my particular sphere right now, I just love when a market is still to be disrupted by tech. There's not many now, but the car trade is just so stuck in its ways. And if you look at what's happening with Kazoo and Cinch and CarWow and Motorway and all these companies that are coming in, tech-first businesses, they are, like Kazoo came from nowhere, and within a year and a half, they were valued at 5 billion. So it's a huge market. It's a £100 billion pound market that's yet to kind of move to the internet. It's just insane. So what gets me excited is the commercial opportunities to go, okay, where can you apply something that kind of works into a market where it's needed? Honestly, I'm not a great innovator. I don't really know much about Web3. I don't know. I couldn't comment in any kind of sensible way on those kind of opportunities. And the Babson experience, there were many people that were a lot brighter than me that took on much more challenging. Like I mentioned, Mark, Celtic Renewables. That 12 years in, they built their first plant. Like I don't have the patience for that. I couldn't do that. Like going back to my advertising days, is like I need to see something work straight away. I'm really impatient, and so I think for me it's more like where are there still opportunities, and then we'll run out of that, and then it will be a case of going, okay, where's the next big technology disruption, and how do we apply that in different markets? And I think some of the most successful entrepreneurs, again, Alex Chesterman, all he's done by his own admission is look at what's happening in America, try and find a model, and then go, that hasn't happened in Europe yet. And he did it with property, he did it with Zoopla. Love Film, I guess there was some other DVD kind of rental businesses. He sold that to Amazon. And then with Kazoo, he looked at what Carvana were doing in the States and went, we should do that in the UK. And to your earlier question, like once you've got a track record like someone like Alex Chesterman does, he can raise £500 million on a PowerPoint because of his track record. So you just go into different realms. So I'm not sure that that's probably the most inspirational answer. I'm just being honest. So
that's all we need. That's all we need, a bit of honesty. So thank you so much for coming down. Incredible chat, and it's fantastic to hear your journey. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Another round of applause, please.
Thank you.